Wanted to chat with you about AI and get your thoughts on one, how it's going to affect us in production, and two, how it can affect us creatively. So, first of all, creatively, the Brutalist they used first Brutalist. I don't know.
Brutalist.
It feels like my New York accent is a
Yeah.
Brutalist.
Well, it's an
Uh,
R in there, so I know that's a struggle.
okay. The film The Brutalist starred Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones used AI to get spot on pronunciations of Hungarian words.
Hmm.
So right there, we're getting into a little weird place, right? Because you're taking their voices and you're enhancing it, right? So
Did they sign off on that though?
weapon.
Did they sign off on it?
I'm
That,
assuming I would.
yeah.
I mean, like Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones are big enough stars where I'm sure they didn't just say,
Mm.
"Ah, we're gonna just use your voice and don't give a damn about y'all," right? Like, so I want to hear your thoughts first on the creative element of using AI in that regard first, like using it to enhance certain things creatively or with actors. And this is interesting because you're a producer and you're on the other side, right? Like, so actors may have their opinion, and of course producers going to have their opinions, and studios going to have their opinions. So I'm curious, what's your opinion on that, right? Like, so let's say if you're working on a reality show and someone needed to fill in the gaps, so to speak.
Well, I think they are kind of using it in
Oh, I
some unscripted.
I don't know.
I don't know this particular series that they're using them in, but I know that like they'll use it to kind of to sweeten the audio in scenes. So say like there's a club scene
Mm,
and they need to drown out the popular music. It will also boost the audio of like hearing what the actual cast members. It's more technical
mm,
of what the actual cast members are saying in a club with like a bunch of popular music playing. So they'll uh, use it to boost what they're saying and drown out
mm.
basically the audio of this. So they can put like a library track over it in post.
So right now, right, that's not creatively changing anything, right? That's just in the production process. So
Right.
that's not, most people wouldn't argue if that's
A lot
too
of people
much.
would say that they should because it helps, basically, and it saves you so much money. Like going into the mix and making all those changes with that's it's more expensive. Now, granted, yes, an engineer gets paid for, or a mix, a audio engineer gets paid to help sweeten and mix those things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to do it in the rough cut stages or like the fine cut stages,
Yeah.
they'll cost so much money. Either way, it costs a lot of money to fix those types of things that maybe AI can knock out for cheaper. Now, if we're talking about what they did for their voices,
And the brutalist, right? Now you talking about the brutalist, like,
I think that's where we're kind of getting in the weeds, right? I think the thing about it is that look, from any standpoint, any type of technology is always supposed to be used to save money. That's what they say anyway. So that's what the whole point of AI is to save money. But in terms of being a part of the Producers Guild of America, like our stance is standing with our fellow guilds, which are very anti AI at the moment in
mm.
terms of the Writers Guild, Directors Guild, SAG AFTRA. My feeling in terms of then why get nominated? If you get to someone gets to sweeten your accent in AI,
Mm.
there's some actor that wants that opportunity that would have worked with a dialect coach probably on their own dime to perfect that Hungarian accent. So you're getting the awards recognition and you did half the part. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude about it,
They
but
didn't do half the part. I mean, I'm sure they just want to make sure the words were pronounced right, and they
oh,
finessed it. They
well, they could have
didn't.
done a dubbing session. Why not bring them in and do a dub session? I'm
Well,
sure what you pay for AI, well, no, it is cheaper.
okay. So, and I'm not defending. I'm just saying, like, I'm just looking at it from all sides. When Amelia Perez, right? Like, there's been a lot of complaints that they don't have a true Mexican accent, right? But they speak Spanish. Selena Gomez and
Does Selena Gomez speak Spanish?
well, okay, maybe she was.
Uh,
I heard struggled a little, but that's what I heard. I
yeah.
didn't watch Amelia Perez,
Mm.
and I don't speak Spanish. But Zoe Zaldana,
She speaks Spanish.
she speaks Spanish, but I don't know how authentic her Mexican accent is because she's not Mexican. So
Right.
if you go in and you just finesse it a little bit to make it sound a little bit more of an authentic Mexican accent rather than let's say Dominican accent.
I don't know. That's when
Are
we
you
get.
wrong?
I mean, you getting Best Picture nominations and Best Director nominations, and you couldn't get them to act their Hungarian accent up.
So AI should disqualify you. All right, so you're not totally against it, but at the least you're like you should automatically get disqualified once you use AI to enhance anything that has to do with acting. Let's get a hard stance. Let's
But
get a hard stance.
but that's what everybody was fighting for in the strikes, right? It's fruit from the poisonous tree. Bite off just a little bit, just a little,
That's true. That's a
like that
fact.
snake in the garden, right? Then you can't be mad when they're like,
Replacing you.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Next, it's gonna be like, look, we decided that it would be best that we may have two main, two central character or one central character and a supporting character, and everybody else be AI.
Mm,
So if you had a main cat, like a basically a main cast of say 6 people, 8 people, whatever. Eight's pretty big, but if you had a main cast of like 4 to 6 people,
yeah.
and you basically said, I'm only rocking with 2 of y'all. The other four are gonna be AI, and then of course everybody you interact with in terms of background actors are all going to be AI enhanced characters. Can you really be mad if they start doing that? Like that's what the whole protest was about, right?
What
I mean, not protest. That's what the strikes were about.
I'm gonna trip you out real quick.
I don't know. I just feel like you walking in some dangerous waters. That's all.
I'm gonna trip you out real quick. What if like let's say Meta or one of these
Uh,
or TikTok right does a partnership right because once you put your upload your pictures some of these sites when you sign those disclaimers they can use your images likeness for marketing purposes right.
right.
What if they like were able to sign you off your likeness to a production studio
They're gonna
to
do that
to
anyway.
use you as a character in the movie you look and you're like is that me in
I
the
think they're gonna. I think they're gonna do that
movie?
anyway. I think. Well, now they really gonna do it. Who's gonna stop them? Really? Like
So you're a hard stance of no AI right now.
it's already in motion. There's no stopping it, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if AI is going to become such a huge part of our society, and that includes in the arts, people still, I mean, we've been in this career for 20 years. So you're now basically telling us, thanks for the years, get to stepping, Gina. Like, I
Mm.
mean, now, what, I mean, there's, this is, for us, this is the only career we know. Now, granted, I think you have to keep growing and learning and as technology and the career you're in changes, you have to change with it.
Mm.
But I do think to a certain extent, so you should know how to use the technology so that you're a viable resource, right?
Yeah.
You're definitely one that people can say, okay, they are going to keep learning, because that's kind of how ageism works, right? How they kind of move veterans out by saying, well, they don't know how to do this, whereas I can get someone 25 who can. So I think in terms of that, learning how to use resources and knowing how to evolve with an industry changing is where you're going to be crucial to
Mm-hmm.
the construct that in which you work in. There's a reason those contracts were only set in place after the strikes for 3 years. They're clearly trying to see where the tech is going to be in terms of AI at the end of those 3 years. And if people think that that's not what they're doing, it's they're literally like, they have so many positions they post for at these studios where they frame it where it doesn't sound like an AI position, but it's so obvious that it is. So pay attention to that, because that's what they're working on. I think when leadership from the guilds come back to the table with them in another now 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is it 2 years? Has
So
it
it
been a
should be two
full?
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the strikes are 2023, right?
Yeah.
So in another 2 years, so 2026 probably is when they come back to the
Yeah.
table. When they come back to the table in the next couple of years to renegotiate, I think there has to be clear lines so that people can still because we're all in it because we like to tell stories. We're not in it because we just want our face everywhere, or we want our voice
Mm,
everywhere, or we want, we're playing at something. This is something that we're passionate about and said we wanted to spend our life doing. So I think because of that, there has to be a clear line of, okay, if you're going to use my likeness and image, you have to get paid for it,
yeah.
right? It's still,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like you're
yeah.
paying the actor, you're just utilizing it. And trust me, it's gonna be a lot. And you're right, the scariest part about the meta stuff is like, say that you're not even an actor, and that's why you have to draw those clear lines, right? And things have to be clearly drawn in terms of that with the social apps as well. Say they like your look and they just want to put you on something, and they're like, you know what, I like the way they look and I
Mm,
like their voice. So I'm gonna do a meta commercial with this person, that person, this person, that person. And because honestly, if they don't have thousands of images of you uploaded, they can't really create
yeah.
a person. And I know this from a producer I worked with on a series recently. When she did a masterclass on AI, she said one of the hardest things to do was to create an avatar of the person that was narrating it or that was actually
Yeah, yeah.
hosting the masterclass, because they didn't have thousands of images, hundreds of thousands of images out there of themselves. So it's going to be a lot harder to create imagery of you unless they have that. So if you post a lot, then they have that,
Yeah.
they can use that. But there has to be regulation. I'm sorry. You don't have regulation, then I mean your 12-year-old could be like, or your minor
Mm.
child could be running around in something you don't even want them in.
I
And you ain't
agree.
getting
No,
a
I agree.
check.
I agree.
Oh no, and you need to secure the bag. I'm
Well,
sorry.
I met an editor, right? Film editor, and I asked him how does he feel about AI, and he was like, hard stance, no. I'm a
Yeah.
union guy. He specifically told me he was a union guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I definitely respect what he was saying because unions are very important. But the thing is, you have these studios, you have these companies who are actively trying to get around unions, who are either
Mm-hmm.
against unions in totality or just trying to actively find ways around working with unions. And I think that's where we run into the difficulties of regulation because it's like you can regulate, but they're always gonna try to find a loophole. You can regulate,
Yeah,
they
that's
always
true.
gonna like they'll spend millions and millions of dollars of legal fees to get around regulation so they can subsequently make a lot of money and save a lot of money, right? Like so I think I feel my personal feelings about AI, right? Like there's certain levels, right? Like AI creatively, I think if you're an independent creator and use AI to like enhance your storytelling ability, I think you should be able to do it. I think you should comfortably like because you're not dealing with unions, you're not taking other people's likeness, you're not like as long as you're not doing things with malicious intent. I think as an independent creator, you should feel comfortable using it because you know you're competing with big studios, right? Like
Oh yeah.
I'm competing with
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, not literally competing with Warner Brothers, but like like I'm competing for attention that Warner Brothers is going to one, they have money to spend, and two, they're actively trying to get around regulations to use AI. Because if you're noticing, AI is creeping slowly, slowly, more and more, and to the point now when even if you're not using AI, Disney got accused of using AI for Fantastic Four
For
uh,
the poster.
poster art, and
Mm-hmm.
they denied it, which now we don't even know if it's true, if it's not,
I
whatever,
mean, that
because
poster art did look a little.
AI ish.
I
Look
was like,
a little AI
and
ish.
apologies too if there was an artist that created it and you're like, this chick, but it
So
was looking a little.
but that's who you're competing with, right? Like they're
Right.
doing poster art. Let's say if they were to use AI and they already a multi-billion-dollar company,
Mm-hmm.
and then people gonna be like, Terrell, you shouldn't use AI. And be like, but they're going to use it. So I think as an independent creative, I think if it helps with saving money, but I do think once you get to starting building assets and you start becoming a little bit more financially lucrative, I do think there should be you should not overly use AI. I think then
Yes.
then it becomes like, all right, you can afford to hire actors or you can afford this and that, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just like gaming the system. And I think that's when it gets a little murky, but I do think you should learn it. I do think personally, as an editor, I'm a television editor, I do feel now on the production side, I do think, and it sucks to say this, I think I'll be out of work in the
Oh,
next 5 years.
I mean, I think they already plotting like how they're
Yeah.
gonna. Because the thing is that you saw this. I mean, you were, you know, really heading into the direction where you were going to make a 1% salary,
Mm-hmm.
and just like that,
And
and
just like
just like that, with the pandemic, with the strikes, oh, it was one of those things. Remember when you like when we used to get calls for series and what's your rate? Like there was a room
oh
for negotiation. Now folks just call you and tell you what the money is.
yeah,
And it's like,
there's
and
no
because
negotiation.
there's so many people out of work,
Mm.
like thousands and thousands of people out of work, probably some of the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah,
And then of course with what LA just went through too, like
yeah,
studios were shut down. So even narrative projects weren't being
yeah,
filmed. So it they're always finding, the saddest part about it is corporate is always trying to figure out a way to capitalize off of pain and suffering,
yeah,
right? So because they lost money in the pandemic, it's not like, oh well, we weren't alone in it. A lot of people lost money. Forget mid-level and small companies that just went out of business.
mm.
For them it's like we have to make our money back. And so that's how you're seeing all the price gouging. It wasn't so much that inflation wasn't going away. It was like no, people were price gouging, which includes like for studios. And then with the strikes, when stuff was just shut down and they weren't making anything, they said that you know the key word going into last year was when 2024 was consolidation. You never want to hear that as a creative because that means oh you're buying less, you're making less. That means if there's less things getting created, less series, less films, whatever have you, that's less jobs.
Yeah, yeah,
And so there for them it's always the bottom line. And I'm sorry, the fact that there just wasn't a big enough stink made off of studio executives making $250 million,
mm.
that is crazy to me in 1 year. I can see if that was like their career span, but like 1 year, and low end is 30 million.
Yeah,
Like the fact that you're negotiated down to 30 million for a year. And I know the 250 was a part of like stock options and
yeah,
other,
yeah.
parts of your
Bonuses.
bonuses,
Yeah,
parts of your package, but none of us see that kind of bonus.
I know.
And we're in here helping you make the money.
I
That's the
never got a bonus in my
craziest
life.
part. Like Terrell tell you, you won't believe the rounds of, and believe me, we feel blessed to be able to create for a living. That is
Yeah,
a blessing. I mean, I'm not taking anything for granted. But the rounds of notes and some of the stuff they say to you in these notes that you get from, your networks or studios or whomever you're working for, and they're like, well, we're trying to figure out how to replace you in 5 years. You basically your income has been reduced from what would you say we probably have lost between 20 and 30,000 now, based on like maybe even more, based on more because of how infrequent the work is
hmm.
too. So where you could guarantee
I
that you
definitely had about 10 to 12% drop in salary.
so in salary, and that's if he's working consistently. There are so
Yeah, annually, of course, it's much more, but
There's much
yeah,
more. I mean, just like the editor he was talking about that primarily does, that's a union, it's in the union, and mm, you know makes, was technically in the 1% in terms of what he made salary wise for narrative film and series. He didn't work for a year.
mm,
And for those that don't know how these unions work, that affects
yeah,
your pension and your health benefits, primarily, particularly your health benefits, because you have to bring in a certain amount. That's why it's so beneficial to be a part of these unions. You actually do have good health care, but you have to work a certain amount a year, a certain amount of days, hours that you have to bank in order to make sure that those benefits, you're paying into that for those benefits to really work for you.
yeah,
So, I mean, there's people that probably have health plans that take care of their whole families. They're not working a whole year because studios want to consolidate.
mm,
I mean, think about the people that this is affecting. Think we're in Vegas right now, but we lived in LA.
hmm,
We're only like here as a temporary thing because we want to go back to LA. But think of like all the people that became unhoused because they just couldn't afford to live there,
hmm,
and we're there because we were doing with anybody. If you wanted to be a banker or you wanted to be, a trader,
Mhm.
or I don't know why I'm all in the financial field. If
Yeah.
you wanted to be a designer or whatever have you, whatever part of like your life is that you said was your dream, and then someone's like, you know what, we want less T-shirts in the world. So, or in the US, because this is really like the studio's definitely buying overseas.
Mm.
We want less T-shirts in the US. So, all you T-shirt manufacturers, we're probably only gonna buy from, I say five of you,
Mm.
and the rest of the T-shirt manufacturers just done out of luck.
But devil's advocate, it's inevitable.
And pretty soon the T-shirt's gonna be made by
I
AI
know.
too.
And t-shirts will be made by AI, I'm sure.
So they just
Well,
gonna be like, we just need your design this, and they won't even need you to design.
no.
They'll just tell the robot what they want it to make, or the AI,
Well,
artificial intelligence.
here's the other side of the coin though. Like AI hasn't yet, in my opinion, mimicked quality. So it's up to the
Yeah,
audience to really differentiate and say, hey, we demand better quality stuff, better quality design.
because the
That's
nuance definitely isn't there for writing.
But the sad part is, if Disney is being accused of using AI and that was an actual designer, that means people can't tell a difference.
That's what I'm saying. It's gonna get dangerous. So,
So,
what I get scared about is how much we ignore just to have the bottom, just to keep going day to day.
mm,
And it's gonna be one of those things where I think we're gonna wake up one day and be like, well, wait a minute,
mm,
why? Like, you'll still have Fashion Week, but it'll be like the AI fashions, or like, or why? You know what I mean? Like, do you need the self-driving car? Like, we saw the self-driving cars
yeah,
all over
I saw
LA.
a
Was
self-driving
it
car.
Waymo or whatever, the Wayo or whatever?
Yeah, I
I
forgot the
forgot
name.
the name of it. I mean, they was
Yeah,
driving like a person out there.
yeah,
So they're gonna pick up your stuff, do your groceries, all that stuff. So we won't need Uber drivers anymore. I mean, think of how many industries it's gonna affect.
yeah, yeah. No, um,
And homeboy from Nvidia just tap dancing, talking about in five, what is it, 5 years,
yeah,
75,
Waymo.
way more. 75% of the workforce will be out of work.
I mean, my thing is,
What's the point of us getting work living? That you live, you do have to make a living. Like,
okay,
see,
well, here's where I mean, and I respect your stance, and I don't want to sit here, but I'm definitely different.
I
I'm
know
like, it
he's
is.
Captain Evil. I
I'm
mean,
just saying it. I am Captain. It reality. It is
no,
what
I know it's gonna
it
happen. I'm not
is.
sitting up here
It
acting
is
like,
what it is. And now I think hopefully we can get regulations and stuff like that. But like at the end of the day, I'm just gonna adapt to where we're at,
yeah,
right? Like we're at a place where AI is becoming more prevalent. AI is going to be infused into our day to day. No one complains when other industries got replaced because of technology, right? Like nobody's out here saying, "Man, them A-track manufacturers, I feel bad for them," right? Like not one person says that. But like you have an opportunity to learn AI. I say go learn AI
yeah.
because that
Wait a minute, who doesn't talk about the 8-track people?
no one does exactly. That's the point I'm trying to say. Nobody.
Well, that was impractical though for a long period of time, though.
I'm just saying, people, because of technology evolving, people lost jobs,
Yes,
and
they did.
nobody cried about those
But
jobs
this
lost.
can replace several millions of
But
people.
it also can create several millions of jobs too,
That's true. I'm not saying that it
right?
can't,
Like,
but
and it can give power to a lot of independent creators, like
you
myself.
just really sounded the alarm when you said, "Hey, what about if Meta decides to do a commercial and they just take your imagery off of
I know that's cold, man.
Instagram?" To say that and just be like, "Word, no." I'm gonna tell you
Well,
right
my
now,
thing is, I'm just gonna.
Zuckerberg. You take my image and throw it in a ad, or Cheryl, what's her name, Sandberg or
Yeah,
whatever
I
her
don't
name is.
know.
You and I gonna have a conversation. I'm gonna tell you that right now, because, and I don't care. I know the courts will probably side with you anyway, but I will. We will have a conversation. You are not gonna throw me up in no ad,
I'm just, I'm just
and I
saying.
don't see a check.
I'm just saying, like, well, for example, like the apartment complex we live in, there was a disclaimer that said you
Oh
can
yeah,
be
there was.
photographed and they can use
Look, we
your
needed to move, so
right, like so.
they take advantage of you. That's what they do. They get you at desperate times. We have to stand strong, creatives. We have to stand strong. If they send you a little disclaimer where they say, and just because we want we want the algorithm and we want to see growth on our channel, if they say, hey, we want to use your thing to push, I mean, I don't even know because I don't do Facebook like that, but like we want to use you for an Instagram commercial because IG still gets it, right? We still always want to do it for the gram. So if you hear something like we want to put you on this or threads, don't fall for it. Don't sign off. Be like, okay, well, what are we talking about here? Let my lawyer review these documents and see the documents. Cause I'm gonna tell you right now, that's how they're gonna get it's gonna be a part of the sign up.
But
It's
yet,
gonna be that's when you sign up for the
yeah,
app,
no, that's what I'm
it's
saying.
gonna be a small discount. And
Yeah.
if you're already on there, you might just be screwed. They might be like, "Oh, you've
Well,
already sold
they'll
yourself."
update their terms and conditions,
Oh, and
right?
they'll send it to you, knowing you don't have time to read it because
Yeah.
you're working all day.
There's a lot
And
of
then,
things that you already agreed to that you're not even aware of with the terms and conditions on everything, your phone, everything that you sign up for. You don't
I'm
know.
mad.
It could
This
be,
has fired me up. I'm sorry. I can't believe you went there today.
but yet you have worked for companies that have used AI though.
Companies that I work for, they use
Let's
AI.
rewind, go back to the footage, everybody, where early in the conversation she said, well, they use AI to enhance people's voices
I
and
didn't
so
work on that series. Now, we did use AI for transcription. And when I tell you, right, okay, so transcribers don't really have a job anymore. And that used to be a job. So I
I was a
get,
transcriber. I used to be a transcriber.
oh, honey, you haven't been a transcriber in about 15, 17 years.
17 years, something like that. But I was one, and now transcribers are out of work because of us. Well, not us specifically, but because of production companies using
Yeah.
AI. So it's inevitable. You can speak against
And
it
there were
as
full on companies used to send out to
yeah,
where
man.
people would
Well,
sit in the
even
office.
when you were talking about sweetener audio, if you do the math, that was time that an online editor would have been working on that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're cutting down an online editor's work time. And it's not like they're cutting down their time because they're using it. You're using it in house, not you specifically, but these production companies use it in house. So they basically say, well, we only need you for a week when maybe that used to be 3 weeks of work for online
I'd
mixer.
say I agreed with how it was being done, but I'm just saying, like,
It is being done. I'm not saying I agree
it's
either.
inevitable anyway, right? It's
You
gonna
all
happen.
over the place right
No,
now.
no, no.
You're all over the place. Before you were like, nah, son, FAI,
Because
F
I really
this.
feel like we
Now
need to
it's
have
like
a
it's
real
inevitable.
conversation and stand on business with it. You know what I mean? Like, as all the guilds have our intra guild meeting and really say what is going to be the position we're going to take and how much AI is going to be used. Because there's still some power we have to have, right? If we all just decided to come together and be united artists and just made our stuff and be like, yo, screw the studios, da 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 da.
Mhm.
It because there are people within all the guilds that have personal relationships with the theater system. If they still want to be in theaters, they have those relationships. If they want to be distributed through Netflix, Amazon, and Apple TV, Hulu, whatever have you, Disney Plus, they have those relationships. So you can still you can make those phone calls and have those where you can do direct to consumer distribution. The problem is, for some reason, people still want to be, and I get it. I get the allure of like wanting to seeing your film on a big, very large screen. But if we learned anything from COVID is that we can be entertained, sometimes and I don't want to call it the in the most organic forms of entertainment. It
Mm.
doesn't always have to be this big splash. So I think if we came together with that, we might be able to, get some respect on our name when it comes to AI.
But then United Talented or the United Artists will just use AI.
They'll have jobs though. We'll have people that know how to use it.
All right, well, I want to hear what
Do I feel
y'all
like I'm
think though.
all over the place
Yeah, I feel
still?
like you're all over. I
I think
still
I made my point.
I don't feel like you made a
Cause
point.
you're a hater. That's what it is.
I don't feel like you
You
made
could
a point.
always find some way to twist
I
my
I
words.
have a hard stance on AI. I'm just like, hey, it's inevitable, so I'm going to use it, learn it, and I'm going to make myself as marketable as an employee as
You
possible,
love
and or as an independent
the
creator.
evil empire. So it's whatever it is, it's just like you for some reason can always sympathize with the villain in the story.
They would have been like, you, Torella, you a Jedi? Nope. Nope. I don't know them Jedi's
The
over
rebel
there.
forces were trying to have balance in the
Mm. And guess what? The Jedi's were villains at one point too. See, come on, man. Well, maybe not villains, but
yeah,
you know,
and they joined with the right
they
people.
wasn't
The
necessarily always the best. You know, they didn't make the best decisions all the time. Like, come on, see, like, you know, I'm just saying, I'm picking the winning team. Bulls, 90s.
oh, I know you didn't.
Nah.
I was about to say this Knicks fan over here.
All right,
Uh,
maybe not all the time.
and not just that,
Shout out to the Knicks.
and not just that. It's well, I root for the underdogs. I'm rooting for those of us that put in the elbow
You're a
grease.
bag and win jumper. You voted for you like the Bulls in the 90s,
Yeah, I like the
the
well.
Lakers,
I like
the
players.
Lakers in the 2000s,
Oh,
the
first of all,
Warriors in the
he,
10s.
he cut himself off in that we know he's a fan. He cut himself off in that. First of all, I'm a players person. I'm a huge Jordan fan, so you always got cannot deny greatness. And he got me into basketball. So have several seats. Kobe, because come on,
Mm.
Kobe. And Steph Curry until last summer.
Like I said, you picked all winning
Jalen
teams,
Brown is
but
my
you root
dude.
for the underdogs.
I do root for the underdogs. And AE out in Minnesota.
Underdog,
He is the
right?
underdog. He didn't win anything yet.
That is not no, no. Underdog is like the Knicks, sticking true with your team, through and through.
Yeah. I stuck through when well, I
The Wizards. When the last time you went to a Wizards game?
think the 90s
Anyway,
when they played the Bulls.
for me, my personal stance is, and you know, right or wrong, it's just inevitable. So I would recommend people use AI. Now, I am for regulation on AI because I do think it could be utilized to take advantage of a lot of people and a lot of
Yeah.
industries. And you know, these are already companies with unlimited resources. So, you know, we gotta kind of like get to a place where we say, all right, put some type of regulations on it so there's you know I don't want to say fair fight, but you get what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
where it's equal playing field in some regard. So that's my stance, but I mean your stance I'm not sure. The
My
audience can weigh in on what Shayla's stance on AI is.
it is a little. All I say, I do think it has. It's a. I do think it has its advantages, but I definitely think it can move into very dangerous territory. And the reason that I feel like that I am not pro in terms of replacing people, replacing positions
Mm,
is because one of how the years and the time people have invested into their careers. That's one. Two, I feel like trying to cut back on what people make for the time and efforts and what they put in their heart and soul, their passions,
mm-hmm.
the nuances that they put into scripts they write, to the acting that they do. I just to the filming that they do, the lighting, all of that. I just feel like there's something that a human element gives to a project that artificial intelligence cannot. But
Agree.
so I feel like for things that I would say might be something that might have been more time manually in certain aspects of production, and I will say more so on the unscripted side, definitely for um, nonfiction.
Mm.
And when you do have smaller crews, smaller teams, particularly documentaries, stuff like that, I think that's where it could be beneficial, to kind of help you keep your project organized, do things like that where you might not have as much manpower. If you have the resources for the manpower, the money, you're making $100 million films and you use an AI. Oh no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, oh no. And there you
It's
go.
multi-billion-dollar companies you're talking about using AI off of IG. Oh, I wish they would. I'm telling you right now. Zuck, it'd be me and you. I
Well,
don't care if you do MMA. I will.
15, 20 years it'll be all AI anyway. So anyway, this will be even AI in a few years. Be a little AI Terrell, AI Shayla.